Hello. Hi. This is fun, isn't it? Brilliant, well done. Guten Morgen, Damen und Herren. Wie geht's jetzt? Ja? Ja. Entschuldigung, ich habe einen Kater. Ja, forgive me. This is called It Takes a Village to Tweet. We really hope you like it. In the confusingly numbered 4th book of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy, the Earthman, Englishman, Arthur Dent, finds himself stranded on a prehistoric Earth with the earliest proto-humans and only his towel. This is obviously not ideal. However, he consoles himself with the fact that because he is man from the future, from the technologically sophisticated 1980s, that he is aware of things like science and technology and engineering and VHS cassette recorders and digital watches, that he will be able to bring these early proto-humans into a new age of enlightenment using these skills and live out his life on prehistoric Earth as a kind of philosopher king. The story segues away from Arthur and returns sometime later, where we discover, as Arthur so rapidly did, that knowing about science and technology and video cassette recorders and digital watches doesn't mean you can make VHS cassette recorders and digital watches. Stranded as he is by himself, without the technology and infrastructure around him, he does, however, carve out a useful life for himself, a niche in this emerging world, making the only thing that he, by himself, can make: the sandwich. In 1967, the economist Leonard Read wrote an essay, a most famous essay, called I, Pencil, where he adopts the voice of a Mongol 482 to tell the story of its genealogy, its history. Created from redwoods in Portland, Oregon, and graphite mined in Ceylon, it is put together in factories powered by coffee and coal. In the story, the pencil says, not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me. Last year, the science writer Matt Ridley discovered or happened upon the same exact thought at the Google Zeitgeist conference. But his example, as befits the modern exponential times, is not a pencil, but the computer mouse. He points out, just as Leonard did, that nobody knows how to make a computer mouse. And if that person did exist, that person would be unable to mine the elements necessary to make the components to make the computer mouse. The knowledge of how to make a computer mouse does not exist in any single person's head. The modern age creates things that nobody by themselves can make. These anecdotes, these fables, these parables are usually used to explain the operation of Adam Smith's invisible hand. See? It's invisible. Thank you. Now, Entschuldigung. The invisible hand is a metaphor for the allocation of assets deployed by a capitalist market, efficiently allocating without central control. Milton Friedman, the economist, famously called this cooperation without coercion. This is a story about collaboration. Western modernity has long espoused the myth of the atomized individual, a singular human being who by his own works or her own works achieves or fails. This is most beautifully enshrined in the American dream construct, where every success is ascribed to your own efforts. An early formulation of this myth, and be very sure of this, it is a myth. The earliest formulation is what's known as Thomas Carlyle's great men of genius. Carlyle, the thinker, said, "The history of the world is but the biography of great men." And it was just men at the time. The idea suggests very strongly that individuals can be so potent, so creative, that by themselves they may usher in an entirely new age, like Einstein did with the nuclear age, as though he did it by himself. If this was ever true, perhaps when gentlemen scientists discovered elements in jerry-rigged laboratories in their basements, it is no longer the case. Every single mind problem has been solved. We live in exponential times of ever-increasing complexity. And it takes literally thousands of geniuses at places like CERN to smash open new secrets of the universe. In the 1970s, prog rock impresario and generative artist pioneer Brian Eno challenged the notion of genius, the idea that individuals could contain knowledge like this, and posited instead the idea of scenius. Scenius, he said, stands for the intelligence and the intuition of a whole cultural scene. It is the communal form of the concept of genius. Scenius is what we're hoping for. It manifests as an emergent property in times and places like ancient Greece and the Renaissance, and companies like 3M and IDEO and Pixar. The open source software movement has the whiff of scenius about it, as does Anonymous. We are Legion. What then allows for scenius to emerge? What are the conditions of true collaboration? What, very specifically, should you all be looking for in agencies that you choose to go and work with? What criteria do you gauge your prospective employers by? Collaboration is the only solution to the future, the only way to make good work. And the conditions are very clear. The first and possibly most important condition of collaboration is mutual appreciation and respect. When departments appear to be in opposition, when People write stupid things like stupid things account people say, and account people suck. The conditions of seniors collapse. Condition 1. Condition 2, the rapid exchange of tools and techniques, the sharing of knowledge so that all may benefit. The difference, perhaps, between hiding your particular Photoshop filters and sharing your code on GitHub, the open source knowledge sharing platform. Third condition, credit, when achieved, is distributed back to the whole community, not individuals therein. 13 execs are listed in the creative credits for the Oreo Super Bowl tweet. We will discuss this. Fourth, my favorite one, because I think it applies to me, tolerance for weirdness at the edges. Weirdness is what allows evolution to happen. But don't trust me, listen to Tom Peters.
I came to the conclusion a while back, innovation is actually easy, not hard. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean something very simple. Please pay attention. Hang out with weird, and thou shalt become more weird. Hang out with dull, and thou shalt become more dull. It's as simple as that.
Hang out with weird, and thou shalt become more weird. And the opposite of weird is dull. In the 1950s, Alex Osborne, the O in BBD and O, invented something called brainstorming. This was a specific attempt to combat the rigid structural hierarchies of agencies and corporations in the 1950s, because hierarchy destroys collaboration. If the only person's opinion that matters is the highest paid person, the hippo, highest paid person's opinion, if that's all that matters, collaboration cannot manifest. Seniors will never emerge. So he invented brainstorming, which dismantles the rules of hierarchy and allows for collaboration in spaces where perhaps it is otherwise difficult. It became the dominant creative ideation tool of our industry ever since. Yesterday, Mr. Mark D'Arcy, the chief creative officer of Facebook, spoke about the Facebook Creative Awards. The Grand Prix winner this year was a piece of work done by several agencies, collaboratively, for Oreos.
How does a product that hasn't changed a lick in 100 years find its way to the center of the cultural dialogue? It takes a lot of bravery and a little swagger. The strategy was to reimagine pop culture through the eyes of Oreo. We called it Daily Twist, an ambitious exercise in real-time culture jacking. 100 days, 100 twists. Oreo translated each piece of pop culture into shareable social content. Agency partners and brand stakeholders created a virtual newsroom, collaborating to create a new piece of content every single day. It was a risky move for our 100-year-old brand, but we believed in the power of real-time social content. See, it wasn't just about making stuff. It was about creating a platform for conversation. We made the content talkable. And people talked. And for the final twist, we handed it over to our fans to decide. Daily Twist became a living, breathing part of culture, just like Oreo has been for over a century. Some pretty important people noticed. From classic cookie to media darling, we've changed the way a new generation experiences Oreo, and we're just getting started.
I'm Rosie. I'm the fiance of Faris, and he agreed to let me on stage to tell you a little bit more about how Scenius comes to life. So that was a piece of work that we did for Oreo when I was at 360i. And I think in advertising, we often perpetuate this myth of the lone genius as well, right? We think about individuals and their contributions and awards. And awards are incentives in our industry, and often your success is judged by how many awards you have. You make more money based on how many awards you have. You might get to go work at a better agency or have a better job or a better position because of these awards. And sometimes incentives are bad, but it's really hard to change incentives. So instead of thinking about how to change the entire industry, we can think about individuals and how to manipulate the incentive system for the best. After we did the Daily Twist, a few months later, the Super Bowl happened, and you probably saw this tweet. The blackout happened. Everyone's playing the game, football, going great, not a big sports fan, but at one point the lights went off. And it was this moment of cultural awareness. It was an exception, right? Instead of the ball going back and forth and players kicking it or catching it or throwing it, all the lights went off, and that was what the internet was talking about. And because we had this system in place from the Oreo Daily Twist work, we put up this tweet. And immediately, it got so much press. Everyone was talking about it. And everyone was saying, this is the ad of the Super Bowl, except we didn't pay $1 million to create a TV spot, and we didn't pay several $100,000 to buy that media during the Super Bowl. Instead, we just had a team of people in the room. So what got almost as much credit, or almost as much buzz, was the fact that afterwards, when we started entering this work into award show, we put 13 people on the awards credit. And no one really liked that, which was really strange to me, because in this industry, while we can be sometimes cynical, it seems like most of us are nice, friendly people. And yet Twitter had a lot to say about the fact that we put 13 people, and they weren't very happy. So let me ask you this. Who made this? Are you guys familiar with this work, the Old Spice Muscle Man? Yes, no, maybe? Yes, okay, I see a few hands. So if you weren't, it was an interactive spot where you could click on different muscles and play different music. And on the awards entry credit, there were a few people listed, I think 3. But think about how many people actually made this. If we're talking about make and we're talking about credit, was it the person who concepted it? The person who had the initial idea? Was it the team of people who sold it into the client? Was it the art director? Was it the videographer? Was it the developer or the team of developers that made this interactive? Was it the community manager or the content manager who figured out where they were going to put it, how it was going to live online, how it was going to reach their intended audience? And yet 3 people got credit for that whole team's work. And how was it decided that those 3 people had more of an impact than anyone else? The thing was, those 13 people on our awards entry, those were just the people in the room. That's our conference room. It's not like the Gatorade War Room where there are loads of flashing screens and numbers and tweets streaming down the wall. It was just a conference room with people on laptops on the internet with pizza and Skittles and Oreos. But Business Insider wrote, this tweet was 18 months in the making. And it was true. Because we had this process in place, a lot of people wrote, it only took them 6 minutes to get it to go live. And it's like, well, it kind of took us 18 months because we had to put this whole process in place to make it a little bit easier. So I wanted to share some insight just in terms of how that happened and what kinds of Scenius was going on behind the scenes. This is a diagram I put together that is kind of talking about content marketing. And hopefully it looks familiar because it's really how you make almost any piece of content, right? A TV spot, a print ad. You kind of start with that research, planning, development, you're creating stuff, approvals, it goes live. The only thing that's different with digital is you actually have time for optimization, right? Because once a print ad goes live, it's pretty much done and out there. And with digital, this is something where on a daily basis, on a minute, on an hourly basis, you're checking and you're saying, how can we make this better? How can we make this more interesting or more relevant? And there are also loads of different people involved. Instead of starting with the traditional art and copy team, I would challenge you to think about what is necessary for this idea and how do we bring this idea to life? And maybe it is an art and copy team, but maybe a creative technologist could get involved, or maybe a community manager, a content manager, or a videographer should be at the heart of the project and the one that's kind of leading the charge. This is a day in the life of a twist. Now, not all twists went this seamlessly. I will say there were plenty of nights where people were in the office until 11 p.m. trying to make things go live. But just to kind of give you that quick rundown, first thing in the morning, we're looking at headlines and news. People said, oh, they're talking about trending topics. And I think when we use the words trending topics, we think of the 5 things that Twitter shows. Not the case. Instead, we were looking at all these headlines and saying, it's not just about what's getting the most buzz, it's what's core to our brand, right? We're using a brand voice document and saying, what do we have credibility to talk about? And what would be interesting to our fans? Instead of creating our own conversations, we wanted to join existing conversations. So we're looking at headlines, we're trying to figure out what's interesting, and we're collaborating with another agency, Draft FCB, so they're doing the same thing. We jump on a phone call, we talk about what are the most likely possibilities, what has the most creative spark, and you can kind of see, different people involved at different points in the process. Eventually, we're talking to the clients, we're sharing with them some of the ideas, hearing what is interesting to them, and also what they think might get passed through legal, because that's a big challenge, right? When you're working with a mega brand, they have 10 to 12 lawyers that want to have the final say, and generally lawyers can be fun haters, but in this instance, they were on our side and trying to help us push things live. And then, kind of concepting throughout the day and also monitoring stories. So if we're talking about the Olympics, for example, and there's a gold medal winner, and you think, wow, this is what everyone's talking about, we have to make a comment on this. And then later in the day, you find out, or it comes to light, that the athlete is investigated for using steroids. That concept immediately gets killed. So there's not a specific person who has that job. Instead, it was may the best idea win. And because there were so many people involved and it was clear that everyone was going to get credit for the work, it wasn't a thing where people wanted to say, I'm fighting for my idea and I'm fighting for my name. Instead, it was, I'm fighting for what I think will be the best way to communicate and to creatively engage with our fans. And then after we had the concepts drafted and approved by the client, then you bring in the community and content managers who are kind of there along the way, right? So they're looking at the concepts from a different perspective and saying, this is something that's more likely to resonate with our community. This is something that's less likely to resonate with our community. Or more importantly, this is something that's going to spark conversation and discussion and that's going to encourage people to share or pass things along. And then even collaboration down to the media team, right? So once something's live, what would need media? And because we're operating on a global basis, how do we distribute that media in an effective way? Mother New York also does a great job with this whole idea of distributing credit. So famously, when they enter award shows, they put no one's name on the award show entry. They just put Mother. And again, it kind of gives this feeling that the best idea will come to light instead of any single individuals. So with that, I hope that you guys got a little bit of a feel for what went on behind the scenes. And Faris, do you want to come back and take it over to talk about a final few points? Thank you. Yeah.
See, we collaborated on this talk about collaboration. See what we did there. John Donne, one of my favorite poets, said, No man is an island, entire of itself. Each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. It is this I choose to believe that President Obama meant, rather than the specificity of small or large government. When he said, if you make a company in this country, you did not do it by yourself. The infrastructure allows it, and therefore credit goes back to all. Everything we ever achieve, we achieve standing on the shoulders of giants. We live in truly interesting times. Things are changing faster than they ever have. We all live to the exponential beat of Moore's law, as processing doubles every 18 months and things get easier and freer and easier. All the one-mind problems have been solved. And we have many problems. Our population is growing at a similarly exponential beat. Our planet is finite. Water is running out in China and Australia. Water. The upside of there being loads more people to absorb all these resources is that there's loads more people to solve all these problems. And that's the thing that we are best at. Homo sapiens is uniquely suited to solving problems at scale, because we are, at our very basic level, social creatures. The reason we, among all the animals of the earth, are species number one is because we can communicate and work in teams, which makes us better at hunting than everything that is read in Tooth and Claw. So, hopefully, social collaboration technologies and social collaboration opportunities will remind us that we need each other, and we need to need each other to be human. Thanks. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot something. Thank you for helping me, collaborator. Young people. This is young people, right? I'll stop reciting now. I can talk to you. Hello. That was a poem, kind of. I thought I would try something different. Did you like it? Thank you. So, this is really important to me. The young people in our industry are the reason I still work in advertising, because they're brilliant. They still care about stuff. They're not cynical. They're not mean. They think they can change the world, or at least, like Steve Jobs, put a dent in it. But you have to help the old people, because working in a place where you've got P&Ls makes you worry too much about money. A P&L makes you think money first, and they are businesses, right? Of course we are. We're not in this to, well, we are in this to have fun, actually. That's why we get to wear trainers and dress like this as a grown-up. Because we're not lawyers, we're not accountants, so we shouldn't act or think like lawyers and accountants. We solve problems with creativity, but we need your help, because you get the world as it's going to be tomorrow, and we do not. So this video, I think, speaks to that point. Help the grown-ups.
I think we all need a pep talk. The world needs you to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we all on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team, be on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My pants broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if there really were 2 paths? I want to be in the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Journey said, don't stop believing, unless your dream's stupid. Then you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream and keep going. Keep going, and keep going. What if Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it, or we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything, I'm just a kid. But I do know this. It's everybody's duty to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. You've just been pep talked. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball.